Okay, so we're back. This is episode three or chapter three of the uh, Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. Last week we had just talked to, um, well, we stopped when we were talking to Tokiko, who is the leader of NICE, and we're supposed to meet up with her at 10. But in the meantime, we do some investigating.
Yes.
And
So much
so,
investigating.
yeah, there are a lot, a lot of moving parts in this game, and it's kind of hard to keep track of everything that goes on. But um, yeah, so what exactly do we end up doing right after we get out of Tokiko Somnium?
Hmm. I think that it involves going around to just check in on a bunch of people.
Yes,
If you've got a list, we won't forget anybody, but I know that there's the the character from the first game who runs Marble is reintroduced here,
yes,
only in the guise of a fortune teller. That part stood out to me.
with her
I can't
magic
remember if
balls.
that's the first is that the first round of investigations right after Tokiko, or is that unlocked shortly after that? Can't remember
Uh,
now.
I am looking at it. It looks like you talk to Shoma
Mm.
to kind of figure out more about him. God, I don't know why this Let's Play that I like watch. They click on like literally every item, so it's like it's a table, it's a chair, it's a
I
bottle of
I
liquor.
do that too. I mean, I do that too when I'm playing, and every so often it will make something funny happen or something interesting will happen. Like in the first game, I remember that Aiba is fascinated by bugs. So if there's ever plants and you click on all the plants, eventually you'll find bugs in them.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that happening when you visit Lemniscate to check in with Tessa and her admirers. There's a bug in one of the plants there. Um, yeah, there's just like weird little things, little interactions that'll happen if you just try everything, which I appreciate. But I guess
Yes.
watching a let's play to try to like streamline things, it's not ideal.
Right. Exactly. So for my purposes of just trying to figure out the chronological order of everything that's happening, yeah, it is a little
Yeah.
it's a little frustrating, but um, yeah. So you talk to Shoma.
Mhm.
He's not exactly forthcoming. He hasn't been going to school for whatever reason. Um,
Oh.
and he ends up not being any help, really.
Yeah, yeah.
He's
I
just,
remember there being a lot of dead ends here. Um, I think the same goes for Gen when you go to visit him at his restaurant. There is um, like a freezer door that's locked. This
mhm,
was kind of another thing that jumped out at me like, oh, you know, frozen bodies and whatnot. So the freezer door, apparently he's lost the key to it. He can't unlock it. And so that's why he has to daily go and get fresh ingredients. But also it seems to be part of his whole thing is like, the freshest ingredients for his restaurant and his customers. So he mentions that. Um,
he does not like Ota.
oh yeah, they have a rivalry. But
Yes,
not over Tessa, it sounds like. That's Ota and the Yakuza dude, Moma. Um, with Gen, it's strictly business. It's like he can't cook. He's a hack. Um, I am the true master chef here. So
yes. Uh, so yeah, and then there's also Amame is there, but she's pretty tight-lipped. She doesn't really talk about anything. But her love of game shows does come up, so you kind of like give her questions and stuff like that. Um,
yeah,
but again, just kind of fruitless. No one seems to know what's going on here. Um, at best, they've heard of the Nyes, but like they can't actually give any meaningful information. Um, yeah, and then so you go back to the pier,
oh yeah, that's
and
where Gen likes to go hang out.
mhm,
And the same thing happens with Shoma, right? Like you can go look for each of these people at these places they sometimes go, but at least the order I went, I already had talked to them at the places where they were, right? His house and his restaurant, and so these were just like extra things to do. I don't know if that changes anything, but when you go to the pier, there's the masked woman. She shows up,
yes,
and it's the same one who was shooting at Mizuki in like one of the opening. events from 6 years in the future. Um, so anyway, she apparently also has something going on at the pier, but since you're there, it messes up her plans, so she leaves. It's like, okay,
Yes, and
cool.
for whatever reason, she seems to harbor some hostility towards Ryuki. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Hmm.
I don't know if she. Do you get the impression that she's a bad guy, quote unquote?
It sure seems to be making us suspect her for,
Yeah.
covering her face. I mean, I think Gen is equally suspicious for the same reason. Uh, because, well, whenever that happens in these kind of games, you've probably got some shenanigans going on behind the mask. It's kind of what we've been trained to expect.
Yes, in the previous four games that we've played from him,
Right.
anyone with a mask uh, generally is someone that you like least expect it to be.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and then so we do that. We meet up with her. Then we go to the park and meet up with Lean.
Oh, but his name is pronounced Lion for some
Yes,
reason, which is really obnoxious. And he is he's really an adorable character. Like he's very likable, kind of goofy. He's very in love with that one girl,
Kizzy.
Kizumi, I
Yep.
guess. Yeah, Kizzy. And he's apparently been given like a job, and he's like agonizing over, oh, should I like go back to my burglarious ways, or should I play it straight? But apparently he's gonna go do it. And I think this is when we watch yet another video, right? Someone has told
Correct.
us that there is another video out there now that apparently everyone's sort of like forgot to tell us about until just now, or maybe it just appeared, and lots of people who watch it disappear. And that's like the urban legend going around. But when we watch this one, this is when I started to suspect not Date anymore, not what I started to think, oh yeah, Ryuki is definitely the culprit here. Like, cause he blacks out. It's one of these very similar kind of videos, and he has the crazy like glitch in the system happen where garbled words go across and you can't understand anything. And then when he comes to, it's like shortly before his rendezvous with Tokiko, uh, who of course is dead, right? She's been cut in half and is half of her is on her desk. So
Yes.
this is when I was like, okay, so Ryuki is definitely involved in these killings. Like he is doing it. And I couldn't remember then like when each of the other ones happens if it's shortly before a body appears. But I'm starting to suspect that he's involved in some way. So
Uh, yes. Another kind of staple of Uchikoshi. It's like, oh, you were the bad guy the whole time. Um,
uh
so yeah, I think he's definitely suspicious um, for the reasons you just pointed out. Um, but so yes, it's very convenient. You do your investigating, and then you kind of just flash forward to nighttime. You can't do any investigating. Apparently, no one wanted to wake up
yeah,
Ryuki
all,
in the
all
park
the
when
people
he
in the
would.
park just like left you
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it's just like a statue. But anyway,
Mm.
so yeah, so you hurry on over to your rendezvous at the Nye's headquarters, and like you said, Tokiko is murdered. She's on the desk. I believe it's the. I don't know if it's significant which half being on the
I think it's
desk.
her right half,
It is.
if
It
I
is her right
recall.
half. Yes.
Yeah. And that was
And
Chikara's as well. Chikara's right half was sticking out of the blackboard at school, I think.
right. Yes. No, that's
Yeah.
correct.
And-
But so you discover the body. The bodyguard that's there basically says, "Yes, no one has come into this office since Ryuki left,
yeah.
um, and there appears not to be any doors, and there's no way of entry." So we do some
Mhm.
investigating of the room and find out, oh, there's a secret passage. Um,
This is so silly. I mean, so when you look around with the X-ray vision, you can't see it behind the waterfall somehow. Like it's obscured. Um, and I don't know, the whole like interaction here is, I think Ryuki even says like this was set up to be a puzzle for me particularly because it uses X-ray and it uses thermo like clues. So he even suspects himself at this point. but of being like the target for uh, this particular puzzle almost. Uh,
Which
I
relates
don't know.
back to kind of the whole point of bats 490, right? It was like,
Exactly.
yes, it was these like these tests that were being given. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, the meta. I don't know if it's necessarily like the meta, but
Hmm.
us as the player kind of doing the exact same as what the player in the game is doing is pretty
Yes.
interesting.
It's really fun, and it's funny too because like we've done this place. This office has been the setting for a puzzle, the Somnium.
Hmm.
Um, and this time it's a bit different, but some of the same stuff applies, like the way in which lines of sight work, right? So you have to move some statues, and they will touch each other with infrared beams, basically. That's exactly like the eyeballs in her dream, in her Somnium, had to be like facing each other. Um, and then the rest of it is kind of a number puzzle. And this, there isn't really much of a hint to what to do here. Um, I really feel like to a certain extent they're just like expecting the player to look this one up. Like, okay, um, before we give the player any hints, we'll just give them this keypad entry thing cold and see what they do. And I want to say like 90% of people probably just Google it at that point because they're like, what?
Yeah.
Like, but if you don't get it right, it does start giving you hints. It starts to like walk you through like here's what you need to put together for this. Yeah, yeah. So what'd you do?
Yeah, so this was that puzzle that when I was playing it at like 10:30 at night and I'm exhausted. And the first thing that I tried was multiplying the numbers, and for whatever reason, I thought that something multiplied by zero um, could be one or something like that. Anyway,
Oh
so
no.
I like
Math let you down.
yeah, so that was unfortunate, and I thought I had tried it with the zeros as well. So it
Mm,
was like one of those things where I thought I had tried the solution, and then I was like, "Man, this just must be like a super tricky puzzle." Um, but
human error.
yeah,
Dang.
yeah. So I guess I fail. I cannot be like a special agent for Nyes. Yeah, this puzzle definitely was not made for me. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
so the puzzle, you basically have this like number grid, and you just have to multiply each column um,
Yes.
to get a number, and the
It's the
numbers.
spaces in between the X's, right? And around the X's of the nonupple symbol. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so the X's tell you multiply, and the numbers by themselves don't mean much, but when you do multiply them straight down, because there's like down arrows into the boxes, you get the number 490, right? Is part of
Yes,
the number.
yes,
Yeah. So I thought that's like a hint as well to the player, like, okay, you're on the right track. You have the number that you recognize. And then the rest of it is kind of almost a palindrome, but not quite. Like the number ends in a 5 instead of a 4, so it's almost a mirror image going left to right, but not quite. So there's like that left right thing going on, um, almost. Yeah.
yeah. And one thing I noticed about the puzzle that I thought was interesting is the way that the numbers are listed. The middle
Mm.
column, so the fourth column, it's all ones.
Right.
And then the diamonds adjacent to those are zeros, and they kind of make up like a percentage sign.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So, uh,
Interesting.
and we've been told up to this point that Nyes and the cult of the percent um, are differing factions, and they're like completely separate groups.
Yeah.
But I I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching it a little too far, but to me, it definitely
Mm.
looked like an intentional. Oh, this is like a percent sign.
No, you probably on the right track, and I suspect that there's like other solutions to this puzzle. Like if you input a slightly different answer, or maybe down the line we'll use this information again in a different way, like a remix of it. We'll do something else probably.
And another thing that I guess I don't think we mentioned this before, but when you're doing these investigation um, sections, right, the virtual reality, well, that's
Yeah,
also kind of what this game is talking about, right? Like we are living in
yeah.
virtual reality. So it's interesting that we're using virtual reality in the game uh, that claims, or at least that there's people that claim that their entire their
Yes.
entire existence is virtual reality.
This is very. to the point as well. So, like, as soon as you do this puzzle, it opens the secret elevator. You go down the secret elevator. It's like a crazy cult setup. It's like the end of her Somnium, where she's got that huge version of the symbol. And down there, there's a box, and you're about to open the box and figure out like what's the thing in the box, and it's kind of a weird little device. But then there's a sound, and you turn, and there's a person, but the person is a VR person. Like they're impossible to make out any of their features. They're just like the people who were there at the very start of the game when we're playing the game show. And Ryuki's looking around, and everyone's like, you know, Sims, blue people. It's one of those people. Um, so I found that pretty creepy. And again, like, is Ryuki in some way uh, like privy to the truth of this simulation, right? Like, is part of his insight into things is like he can see the fact that certain things are simulated, the same way that his Tama eyeball person like helps him figure things out by using virtual reality. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, this part involves some dodging. The mystery person throws some torches at you as you chase them up a ladder, and I found this so goofy. Like the ladder chase scene is so silly.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah, some of these quick time events in this game they're just like so unnecessary.
they
Uh,
are, yeah.
I would enjoy the scenes a lot more if they didn't exist, because especially if you screw it up and you have to do the whole thing again. Uh,
So many times.
yeah,
So
it's
many
brutal. I mean, luckily,
times.
I don't think that they change, so
Right.
you will eventually get it by trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah. This one didn't take me too many tries. The next one, there's a sequence. It's like, anyway, so then the guy pulls the person, the mystery being, pulls a lever that just drops like a portion of the bridge that you're trying to run across, and you fall. And I don't know how you survive. It's not explained. Like, it seems like you fall pretty far, but then you just sort of like clip to being scolded by the boss. She is like chewing you out for taking risks and not calling for backup or whatever. It's not explained whether you were hurt in this fall or what you landed on that allowed you to survive or anything. It's just like, Ryuki, this time uh, you're gonna be broken down to the ranks. Like this is the worst thing that can happen in Ryuki's reality.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
this overachiever. He's gonna be just a cop if he doesn't solve this mystery in 3 days. That's the new deadline.
yeah.
So,
Well, that's the perfect segue to talk about the motivation of Ryuki, right?
uh-huh.
Because we end up going to the one park and we're talking to Tama, and we get some motivation for him. Apparently, Ryuki's brother was hit by a semi truck 6 years ago, and
Oh
he has
yeah.
this watch which has stopped time at. And I made note of this just because like I don't know if it's going to be relevant, but it was like
Mm.
10:10, I think is what the watch showed.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, let's let me just see.
This is really similar to the setup of World's End Club, right? It's a kid getting hit by a car or a truck. Spoilers for World's End Club.
Uh,
Anyway.
Yes. Also, do not play World This End Club unless you are in middle school or maybe like maybe ninth or 10th grader.
It's hilarious. I don't know, entry in his whole like body of work. I love that there's weird little resonances though between it and the other games, like all the amusement park stuff, right? Like, anyway, so yeah, so we get a little bit of backstory here. Ryuki's calling this his other half also, which is like a strange turn of phrase for him to use. So at first I thought he was talking about like his girlfriend or his wife. That's how we usually use that phrase, but he meant his alter ego, essentially, right? A twin brother.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention. No, I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, it seems to me in a lot of these games, it's about kind of like the forceful like lost of innocence of childhood and
Totally.
that kind of stuff, right? Like it just always, in last game we had like Mizuki whose parents were murdered, and we had to go through that.
Mm.
In this game, um, well, I guess Mizuki again. Um,
Yeah. Her father figure, Date, right, her caretaker is missing.
yeah,
And
so it's, and also, well, never mind. Uh, I was just
no,
trying
say
to.
more. So her name appears when you're at the dock. If you look around at the warehouse, Tama's like, "Oh, it's like Mizuki's last name before she was adopted." But that's probably not relevant, right? Like that must not be important. Um, and they're
Well,
reusing a ton of assets from the first game, right? It's like
yeah, that's what I
literally
was gonna
just the
say.
same stuff.
They were
So
like, "Oh, we already have this cool pier. It'll be a nice
yeah,
callback. It'll be like an Easter egg for people who have played the game before." And if you haven't
yep,
played the game before, well, it doesn't really matter because it's relatively insignificant.
we're just gonna brush it aside. And of course, there is this huge like dust up at the docks, which is again like a thing straight from the first game. One of the climactic moments in that game involves like driving your car into the docks and having all these helpers as you fight this big battle. So anyway, there's some stuff that happens before that, right? Before we get there. Um, Kom- Komeji, for one thing, um, is real suspicious.
Yes,
Oh, oh, and we have to do like the little scene at the orphanage also. It has to happen first, I think.
yes, you
Jumping
do.
ahead. Yeah. Mm.
I'm just trying to. Yeah, so you go to the orphanage and Mizuki's there, and you're just kind of talking to everyone. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if there's any like real useful information that we get from this interaction. I mean, I'm sure it will
It's
be
just
when we look back and
y-
we figure out what happened, um,
yes.
but it's not readily apparent, right?
Exactly. There's a kid who went missing 20 years ago or so. Oh, we also learned that Tokiko had a child at some point. Her body
Oh
shows
yes,
signs of having
that is
given birth,
correct. That is
right?
correct.
Oh, and Boss keeps mentioning that she has a daughter now, and her daughter's like turning 18 or something. So there's something weird going on with like these generational things. And of course, the flow of time is important. But anyway, so like that's one thing. Um, Kizzy's father is apparently a big funder of Chikara's, you know, nefarious stuff that involves child experimentation, like human experimentation, or his genome projects and things. Um, and he's, very anti-police. He's like this kind of um, like super conservative rich guy. Anyway, yeah. So he's made out to be sort of like a possible suspect here, which is funny because Kizzy is like so innocent, and so kind. She and Lion share this nice moment where they explain that their names both mean bond in their respective languages.
Hmm.
So Lion, spelled that way, in French means bond, and it's still used in English in like legal contexts, I want to say. If you put a lien on someone's house, it's like a way of, I don't know. It's like a financial thing of some kind. And
Yeah.
and then in Japanese, kazuna apparently means bond. So there's some wordplay going on. They like bury a box holding letters to each other,
Hmm.
um, which, by the time we come back to the present, it will have been enough time for them to decide if they actually want to have a relationship or not, and they'll be unburying the box. I guess it's the time capsule thing. Mm, yeah, I don't know. That scene was just kind of weird.
Yes, the
She
glass
dances.
sippers like she's Cinderella.
Oh yeah, that's right. The glass zipper. Yeah, yeah. I forgot.
Yes,
Uh,
it's very weird. Did you ever do a time capsule? I think we did one in elementary school or middle school or something like that.
yeah, of course. But then everyone forgets about them, so I don't know if they were ever unburied.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
especially because back then you didn't have digital calendars that you could keep track of, right?
mhm.
All it took was like one person to just kind of like forget about it, and it was just completely forgotten about.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
One other thing I
Interesting.
just want to mention is the father, Ricci, is not
Mm.
very approving of Lien.
Oh, yeah. Not at all. Just, like, totally dismisses him.
Yes. And then we get our obligatory dance video.
Exactly. Yeah, and this happens with Gen and Gen's person also. Like, there's a song that happens, to, like, cheer her up, right? So there is something going on with yeah, the way that we solve crimes is through VR filmmaking, and the way that we solve our relationship problems is through, pop
The
music and
power of song.
dance routines.
Yes.
The power of song.
How
It's
do you
it's
how
just
do you
that
think it
simple.
how do you think it compares to the rainbow whatever
Oh,
super arrow?
no, see, that's the thing, like, Tessa has not yet sung a song, I believe, unless I'm forgetting. Um, Tessa is, like she's only for the ending, right? The true ending. So the Rainbow Arrow is far and away better than these 2 songs, I would say.
And certainly the music video is much better.
And I don't know, like, I might just be partial to Tessa. I might be one of those, you know, people who can rhyme her name with 3 random things at the drop of a hat. But I don't think so. I think she objectively has the better song. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So after we do that, we move on. We go to the amusement park that's on the top of the roof,
oh, there we go. Okay.
and we start talking to Shoma to try to get more answers out of him. Uh, and we discover that Shoma and Kenji, I'm terrible, Komeji,
Komeji.
whatever, the comedian, do not have the best relationship in the world.
Mhm.
Also, the dot on the forehead of Komeji is also odd. It reminds me of the statues that were in Tokiko's office.
I know. And it's never explained why his head is a square with, like, a face stretched over it like a me or something, it's like, "What is
Or
going on?" And
Minecraft Steve.
and just, like, nobody talks about yeah, exactly. Eh, I don't know. And we do eventually do a Somnium with him. It's shortly after this, right? Because we're like, "Oh, Lion was saying something about breaking into the, Horidori Institute," right? There's, like, a
Yes.
secret room there. Um, and then Komeji is there for some reason, and he's got a gun, and it's like, "What is going on?" Um, so we bring him in for questioning with the sync machine, and boom, we're back at the amusement park again, right?
Hmm.
His somnium is him running around the amusement park trying to deal with all of his debts. He basically has like all these people that have loaned him money and he can't pay it back, right? Because he's not a very good comedian. So
Well, Tama might disagree with you.
Tama is a huge fan of Komeiji. Again, not explained. Don't know why.
Uh, yes, and it doesn't make sense because his jokes
Gosh.
really are awful. Like maybe I'm missing something, and it's from like a
Mm,
different cultural standpoint they're funny, but yeah, they're awful. I mean, and I think that's the intent, right? Like he is supposed to be a really bad comedian because if he
yeah.
was a good one, he would be having these financial troubles.
Yeah. And so he's doing his best. I don't know, like as you run around, you basically it starts to center on two things, right? His money problems and his relationship with his son. And there's a splitting point there where you can choose like what matters most to him is
Hmm.
money and all the stuff he really cares about, or just like protecting his son. So of course we both chose protect his son. I mean, that's just like the humane thing to do. And this of course is like the weakest route, I guess, right? It's like the Ota route in the first game, where you like figure out Ota's relationship with his family. Um, it's preliminary to understanding deeper mysteries going on, and in some way it's like again it's like the most natural route to take. I think it's probably safe to assume most players are going to get this ending first. That's my assumption based on nothing really, but
Yeah, no, it seems to be. I would have to imagine, unless you're just going against the obvious
Mhm.
choice to protect Shova. Like most people are saying, like protect Shova at all costs. That just seems like the right answer uh,
Mhm.
in this game, both from a moral standpoint and from like, oh, I want to get the best ending. But like you said, it leads to a lukewarm ending.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's fine. Like, so there's not really much you can do for Komeiji other than seeing like a mysterious document, right? And he's like, "Oh, this is like something I found, but it was all in German. I don't know anything about it." But I think that Shoma like translated it, like used a translation app. They point this out a few times. It's like, no, that's like how we understand other languages now is through apps, um, which is funny. And so, but the gun, I feel like we just kind of like let that completely slide. Like, why does he have a gun? Why is he at the institute? Is he like planning to kill Chikara? Like, I don't know. Anyway, Chikara's already dead, so that doesn't make sense. I don't know. I don't know. It just felt really really weak.
yes,
Um, hmm.
and very out of place.
Yeah, and well, so you go back to the house looking for Shoma, and there's a note there. It's like, "We have your son." You know, again, it veers into this territory of like total action movie, and it turns it up to 11, like to the nth degree, because because this sequence that follows, uh, you let's see, you are saving Shoma, right? So
Yes.
there's one level of saving happening. Um, Komeji wants to be a hero, so he runs in. So then you got to save Komeji as well. So there's the
Hmm.
second level of saving. Then you're like outgunned, and so pretty soon Mizuki comes in, right? And Mizuki is saving all of you because she's got crazy powers, as we know.
Yes.
And her lead pipe is out, and it's great. And then you're still outgunned because somehow there's so many scientists with so many laser beams that the masked woman has to pop in. She like drops down from the crane where she's been hanging out, and she saves everyone. But that's still not enough because they're off fighting more scientists. And so then a car comes screeching in and like hits like 10 scientists as its little drift stop, and Date pops out, and Date is really cool. Uh,
Yes.
he 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 is really good at powering up using the power of porno mags.
Yes.
And this is this is explained because he like had a near death experience where a snake bit him when he saw his first porno mag, and so ever since he like has an adrenaline rush when he reads one. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
he powers up, punches, like slowly punches all of them, and that's still not quite enough, right? There's just like endless series of waves of scientists coming at you, and there's a series of these quick time thingies you've got to do, and it's just silly. It's just silly.
Sometimes
I don't know.
the ones where you had to like put the crosshairs and hold a button.
Yeah,
Those ones are always tough. Like those were the ones that I always got screwed on. And I would say that that
I
one probably,
died so many times trying to do these things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it took
Yeah.
forever, and it was so annoying, especially when you get to like the last one, and
Because
you
you have
screw.
to do such a perfect, you have to do it perfectly, right? You
Yeah.
can't make any mistakes. Yeah, you have to do like two buttons in a row. And there's something going on with like the left and right side of the body, right? Like you have to everything to do with these quick time events is just pointing you back at that. And then I was realizing that the switch itself has a left and a right side that are like very distinct and
Hmm.
separate, you
Hmm.
know? And so depending on how you're playing the game, you might be holding, two separate halves of this thing. And so it's just like a really interesting, yeah, like a meta commentary on playing games. I don't know. It's a lot of fun and very annoying.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know. Did you like the over the top action scene?
yeah, it was hilarious. It was
Yes.
great.
Yes. I love that. It's like super
Uh,
campy, just like super stupid. Um, very 80s action movie or James Bond. But yeah, it was really cool to
yeah,
see just everyone kind of come together and just
yeah.
start kicking butt. I also thought that the scientist suits that they were wearing looked
Hmm.
like the same space or well Spoiler for Virtue's Last Reward. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the space suits or the astronaut suits that were in Virtue's Last Reward.
Absolutely.
And why are the
Yeah.
scientists wearing that?
I don't know. They're doing something with Shoma, and Shoma tells you later after you do his somnium, right, that he was experimented on. So that he has some genetic thing going on that made him a good candidate for experimentation, or that's what they told him anyway.
Right.
So maybe the scientists, A, are protecting themselves from whatever's going on with Shoma, or B, they're all a bunch of like VR people under there, right? Like, and so this is a way to disguise their simulatedness or something. Like, those are my two theories right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to think. So Date's back. I'm just trying to think what
Hmm.
else we got going on. Uh, did we talk about the virus yet?
No, I don't think we know about the virus.
Whoops. All right. Well,
Well,
you'll
there's
learn
the
about that.
masked woman. We're told that the masked woman has some illness. That's all we know. And that might or might not be related to what you're talking about.
Am I
But
on the wrong one? I
well, somebody told us also it was Mama, right? When she's doing her thing with the two crystal balls, um, and the voice takes her over. It tells us that the masked person, like the face, is the key, and so we think it's supposed to be Gen because he's got like a deformed head under his mask. But it also could be this masked woman, or it could be someone else, right? It could be the face of the person that we can't see, who's just like a VR person, or
right.
could be anything. Um,
Even a both.
that's also when they tell you that the Statue of Liberty is on Ellis Island, and it's
Yeah.
like this Mandela effect moment, and I was like totally taken in by it. I had to look it up, and no, it's actually on Liberty Island. There is such a thing in the real world.
Oh,
But yeah,
really?
that was funny. Yeah, no, it's totally trolling you.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so
So
we have
after.
to.
Oh,
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
I'll just say. So yeah. So we do the fight. What happens after the fight and we save both of them?
Then we go back to Date's house and Mizuki's house, um, and they have a little bit of like catching up to do. Um, but then, yeah, I don't remember exactly how, but then we end up having to take Shoma in. Like, he's not disclosing why he lied about the whole institute and everything. Um, so then we sync with him.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, I think the Let's Play I'm watching went down a different path, which is why I was a little
Mm.
confused. All right. So yeah, so we take in Shoma, we do his Somnium,
Hmm. Hmm.
which is extremely bizarre. So it's their house that they live in.
Yeah.
Um, for some reason, there's a game show button on the desk or whatever that table's called.
Yeah. It's a special desk.
Uh,
It's like heated or something underneath. I think it's like, I don't know. Anyway, he he has a little mock, like model house
mhm,
that is also the house, right? So it's like he's playing out a fantasy in which the made up thing is more real than the real thing. But then it becomes like indistinguishable which is which,
mhm.
and then he thinks they're both completely fake, and then ultimately you have to just like keep messing around with stuff, um, jumping back and forth between the two until he realizes like, oh, the calling things fake is a kind of defense mechanism, and actually, yeah, I do care about my dad, and I can put up with bullies because you know
At the end of the day,
yeah,
he loves
whatever.
his dad.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. There you go.
yeah, and one thing to note is you're fixing all these things that have been torn,
That's right. That's right.
and you have to reassemble them. Um, which going even further back, there was some metal that I think Shoma had given Komeji, and
Oh,
he tore it up,
the origami, yeah, the badge. That's right.
the gold
Yeah.
medal. So. but so yeah, this whole line is about, I guess, mending the relationship between Shoma and Komeji.
Exactly. Um, and it, I mean, the stuff that he says there, he almost like seems to sympathize with the original murdered guy, Jin Urure,
Yeah,
right? He's like, oh, he's only a half now. Like how lonely he must be. He never left his house. He like sort of looks up to him in a weird way, slash, yeah, sympathizes with him. So he's definitely got some connection to the terror, that's I don't know. Yeah, yeah. Um, this ending, that was one of the main reasons this ending was so dissatisfying, was like I'm still really suspicious of both him and his dad. They both seem, this is too simple of a thing to end on for them.
yeah, and as like emotional as I think it was, like trying to be, Komeji's square head, just like I feel like just makes everything so silly, right? Like I can't take it seriously. You have this like normal looking kid who's like, "Oh, I love you, Dad," and the dad just looks like, I don't know, some weird Hey Arnold character.
Yes, he does. He does. He's doing headstands with it. Like he's using it as a box to stand on
Yeah,
upside down.
yeah.
It's
I guess I would make
like
it really easy to do that.
he's really good at headstands. Yeah, so he's got his like shadowy figures who he owes money to. His son has these shadowy figures who are bullying him, and yeah, he's. Oh, it's also Valentine's Day. We must mention this. So there's like another love thing going on, not just with Lion and Kizzy, but with Mizuki and Shoma. They actually liking each other than thinking about liking each other.
Yes,
So,
yes, and it's actually very appropriate considering it was just Valentine's Day. What, 5 days ago, 6 days ago?
mm-hmm.
Which, by
Yeah,
the way, did you do anything special?
we tried to go out. We didn't make reservations though, so we ended up driving around a lot before we found somewhere to eat.
Oh
So
God! So you actually went out on Valentine's Day night?
no, the next day
Oh,
it was
okay.
just it was just as bad though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about you?
we were we celebrated last Saturday. Um,
Okay, ahead of
but
time. Good.
yeah, well, it's too commercialized and it's just like way too difficult to get. And every restaurant has like these prefix menus, so you don't even get to order what you want.
Oh
Um,
yeah, dumb.
but yeah, so anyway, so yes, it is Valentine's Day, the season of love down here in this world. Okay, so we do that. Go to we discover so that their house. Wait, hold on.
Oh yeah, and the name. That's the thing that he does tell you, is that Terror told him his true name, right? And we hear this like in a garbled voice. I guess it's supposed to be Terror. Um, Still looks like the simulated guy, saying that his name is Dahlia, which is very like out of place. Weird
Why do you say
kind of
that?
a name. Because it's so like gentle and it's like a flower. Um, I don't know. It must be another bit of wordplay. I'm not sure how it relates yet, but
I was also thinking of the Black Dahlia, which is that case that was in Los Angeles. That might be too much of a
oh,
stretch, uh, but I think like dahlias do have maybe significance in like Hinduism.
probably.
But yeah, so anyway, yes, it is weird. You suspect that Terror has to be a male, but with the name like Dahlia, it kind of calls that into question. I will say I did finish the other route, so I'm done with this part of the playthrough. And the
Oh,
name,
nice.
you learn another name, and it's even more ridiculous.
Cool. Cool.
But that's all I'll say
Yeah,
about that.
the meaning I'm getting from mylifeinblossom.com is in Hinduism, the dahlia symbolizes fertility and prosperity. In
Hmm,
Buddhism, it represents the Buddha. So there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So now you know. Um, but yeah, so we got that ending. I guess we need to go back and choose money.
That's right. That would be the most immediate branch that we could, explore.
I think that is the only branch that you can explore at this point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That
because
we actually know an answer for. Okay.
you end up going back to the first Somnium when you're in Ryuki's, and
Mm.
Tama asks like, Do you know who Terror is?"
Oh, okay.
And then that's what you have to put the two names into.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah, so
So we
this is
got
the
one
only
of
route
them.
that you can play.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, is there anything else to discuss for now?
No, that was my big insight, I would say, is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm holding a left and a right, and I'm using both buttons
Yeah,
simultaneously." Ah.
if well, and I know that Uchikoshi designed 999 specifically for the hardware that it was on. It originally came out on the DS, and
Right,
he was
using the
able
2
to use.
screens.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if this was made with like the Switch in mind, because I think that's kind of the only video game console where you are kind of playing with two halves, like two
think
separated
so.
halves of a controller. I don't think you can do that on the PS4 or whatever other PC or whatever. But yeah, no,
Uh,
that's cool to think about.
yeah, alright.
Yeah, well, anyway,
Continue
so I guess
to
next week
explore
we'll get through the choosing money, um, and then we can discuss that.
that rest of that route. Alright,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right. Well, same time next week.
Mhm.
All right. Very good. Until then, goodbye.